Hello, good morning. Hi, Samantha.
Hello.
So here in Germany, it's a little bit after 11 a.m. on Sunday, 21st of June. And with us, we have Samantha. And Samantha is story number 10 in this series. So thank you for taking the time for this interview, Samantha. And let's get started. Tell us about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. I'm Samantha. I am 28 and I live in Wellington, New Zealand. Um, I'm pretty standard Kiwi, I guess, in a sense. But yeah, no, I work as an office manager. In my spare time, I like to read, watch movies, hang out with my friends, all the standard things. I love cats, huge cat person. And yeah, that's pretty much me. Pretty simple.
Well, I love cats too. I have one little one, but I hope she won't make too much noise. Yeah. But what about you said you're an office manager. Has your job changed at all? So pre-COVID-19 to now, have you had to reinvent yourself, or is it just business as usual?
It's business as usual. So I was very lucky. My job continued to keep me on, which was awesome. So yeah, I haven't had to change jobs or anything. We're quite a small company, but we're slightly government. So we were in a good position, I guess, to keep everyone working. Yeah. So.
And within your job, did you have to were there differences, or thankfully you weren't affected? I mean, I know you weren't affected, that you still have the same job, but has the job itself, the day-to-day things that you need to do or have done, have they changed at all or no?
Well, slightly, I guess, because a lot of my job was we have people coming into the office, we have people from overseas who come in, and part of my job was obviously setting up meeting rooms and all that sort of thing. So I guess that's downgraded a lot because we don't have people coming in. We've had a couple of people from Auckland come, but obviously no overseas travellers. Now that we're back into slightly normal life here, but during our full lockdown, I couldn't work at all because my job is being there. So I didn't work at all during I think it was about 7 weeks. I didn't work, but my job was awesome, and they continue to pay me and support me. So that was really good. Yeah.
Very, very good. And
Yeah.
you just mentioned the lockdown, and obviously that's one of the main things that we want to talk in this interview about.
Yeah.
Just tell me, before you tell me about the measures and everything that New Zealand did take, can we speak about what is going on right now? So what is currently happening? What are the concerns that everybody's having on the news? What topic has been discussed in New Zealand?
Yeah. So what's happening now is, everything's trying to get back into normal as pre-COVID as we can, but just within New Zealand. So businesses are pretty much all back up and running, everything, we don't have to social distance anymore, like all that. The main thing is, obviously, is the new cases coming into New Zealand is the big thing in the media at the moment, all over the news, everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. Because we were about, I think, 26 days free of COVID. And then we had 2 British ladies who came in. They got compassionate leave so they flew into Auckland and got compassionate leave to come down to Wellington. And one of the
sorry to interrupt. When you say compassionately, what is it that what does it mean?
So compassionate leave. So if anyone flies into the country, they can apply for compassionate leave if they have pretty much a dying family member, or a family member has died. They can then get compassionate leave to either see that person before they die or be with their family while they grieve. So in this case, I think their mother had died, so they were sisters, and I think she had passed away, and they wanted to come down to be with the family in Wellington instead of doing their full 2 weeks in Auckland isolation. So they drove down to Wellington, which is about a 9-hour drive from Auckland to Wellington. They claimed they didn't stop anywhere, or if they did stop, they just went to toilet on the side of the road. They didn't go to any places. But when they got to Wellington, one of the ladies, they both got tested because they were showing symptoms, and they both had it. And so a lot of people were very angry. And now I think we've got 6 cases now. So they're all people who have flown in. But those people are in their isolation.
Okay.
So there's mainly that.
Well, it's understandable to have the anger and the fear, right? Because as we have seen, it only takes one case for it to spread.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think people felt like, when we were in full lockdown, like us who were already in New Zealand, people who lost family members, they couldn't go to funerals, they couldn't do anything. And it just, a lot of people, I think, were a bit upset that these ladies, got that leave that a lot of people didn't, and then they risked the health of so many people. I think that was a big thing as well.
Yeah, a little bit of a sad contradiction that does not help the situation. Yeah.
No.
And going back to the lockdown, can you just tell me a little bit about what were the measures that New Zealand took from the very beginning? Did they go in full lockdown right after having, how many cases did they have? Or did they just watch other countries, what they were doing, and took matters in their hands before things started? Just talk to me a little bit about New Zealand.
Yeah, so obviously they were keeping an eye on it since when it started in just the end of December, got more serious in January. There were some border procedures put in place through February, but there wasn't much. I flew to Australia in February and it was easy peasy. There was no check. It was mainly, not really. It was mainly, have you been to China in this time? Do you have any of the symptoms? And that was about it. And then we got our first case, I think, at the end of February was when the first case came. And then they obviously, started to see, okay, this is a bit serious, it's here now. And then obviously the cases grew. I'm not too sure how many cases it was, but there was a lot of pressure from obviously the nation to be you need to start closing the borders off. So that was the first thing that happened. There was a call out, if you want to get back into New Zealand, you need to do it quick, or if you need to leave New Zealand, you need to get out soon, a week or so, we're closing the borders. So that was the first thing they did, and that would have been the middle of March, maybe the beginning of March. I'm not too sure on dates. They've kind of disappeared.
Time has
Yeah. And so obviously the cases started to grow. So we went into full lockdown on the 26th of March. So the week, which was a Thursday. So the week before, I would say they started putting in tracking. So if you had to go, you had to write down if you'd been into places. So that started probably the week before.
And where is that for what?
So going into restaurants or bars and stuff, they made you write your name. So it was more if you're in bigger groups of people, they took down all your details. They started putting in social distancing measures, but it wasn't anything too extreme. The weekend before, we went out to a engagement party, which was in a bar, and we just put our name down, and they just had a limit of people. I think it was 100 people at that stage. But then on the 23rd of March, which I'll remember because it was my birthday, was the day when Jacinda decided that obviously they'd had so many cases that she made the decision, which would have been a huge decision, to just lock down all of New Zealand. It was full isolation. So they brought out a level scheme. So we did it in levels. So she put us into level 3 straight away, which was pretty much all businesses closed except for essential ones. you were still allowed to travel, but it was mainly traveling to where you need to be because you're going to be stuck there for 4 weeks, at least 4 weeks.
Okay.
So it was 48 hours to pretty much get yourself ready for
Oh,
isolation.
and
Yeah.
was that explained already at that stage? Was it already explained at that stage? Look, it's going to be like 4 weeks isolation. So once you get to the place, so it was communication was clear from the very beginning.
Yeah. So it was 4 weeks at the beginning, and then they on that 4 weeks on the Monday, she would then decide what to do then, if if we move down to level 3 or if we stay at level 4. So yeah, so we went into level 4 on the 26th, which was a Thursday, and that was just full lockdown. The whole of New Zealand just closed pretty much, except for obviously essential services like supermarkets, pharmacies, hospitals, doctors, those sort of things. You couldn't physically go to doctors, but you could call them. Yeah, it was just the weirdest thing, you've ever been through, and being, stuck at home the whole time. And yeah, because I had taken the day off work for my birthday, and I called my work up like after everything had been announced. So it was just like, what the hell's going on? I called them. I was just like, do you want me to come and grab anything? They're like, nah, just stay home, just get ready. Like, there's not much we can do for you. Like, you can't do much. Just, we'll see you when it's over. We'll keep in touch, like, sort of thing. Yeah, it was crazy. It was just one of the weirdest experiences. And like, I had all these things planned on my birthday. Everything got cancelled. Like, we had to do a makeshift birthday at home, which was fine. Like, it was nice. But yeah, it was a birthday you won't forget.
At all.
Yeah, so we ended up being in level 4 isolation. So we did the 4 weeks, and then she came out and said, cool, we'll move to level 3 next week. So we ended up doing 5 weeks in total of level 4. That was
sorry, at that point, do you remember around how many cases, how many deaths New Zealand had?
At that stage, I think the deaths, the deaths were at like 18 to 20.
Mm-hmm.
Cases, I'm not 100% sure on. I think we had like overall. It's a great question. I'm trying to think. I think it's around 2,000 cases we had. So they put it down just when the cases started to drop. So it was more when new cases. So I think new cases started to drop because obviously there was no community getting them. Yeah. So that was the main thing. Community clusters was the main thing they were looking for. So once that kind of stopped and they weren't getting as many new cases, obviously people still had it or were still, recovering from it. I think in level 3 there might have been like another death, but it was just when everything started to slow down that she decided, okay, we'll go to level 3. But even at level 3, like the shops didn't open back up. Like takeaways opened was the main thing, which everyone was excited about. And then yeah, like, and I couldn't go back to work at level 3. They didn't want people going back to offices at level 3. So that was another 2 weeks in pretty much self-isolation. You could, so we had what was called our bubble. So our bubble was who was in our household or, who we decided to do isolation with. So it just meant we could extend our bubble slightly. So like I extended it to my mum so I could go see her. But it was still pretty like, try and keep your bubbles close and, that sort of thing.
And how many bubbles could you have or could you interact with?
So during level 4, it was your own bubble, unless obviously you're an essential worker. That was something obviously you would have to decide with your family if you wanted to separate from your family or take the precautions to like, clean, sanitize when you come in, have ways of doing that. But yeah, some people obviously did isolation by themselves if they were essential workers. But yeah, it was just mainly who you ended up being in the house was your bubble. Obviously, people who lived alone or like elderly who lived alone could have like a bubble buddy sort of thing. Like my mum was living alone, but she kind of made her bubble her neighbours, so they like helped her, they got her groceries and that sort of thing. Yeah, so they had that sort of thing for people who were alone or vulnerable sort of thing as well. Yeah.
Okay, that was in level 4. And now in level 3, could you have different bubbles or just like one? So yours and your mom, for instance.
Yeah, they tried to keep it like as minimal as possible. Like it wasn't, you couldn't go and see all your friends, like that wasn't allowed. Like you couldn't be in groups. Yeah, you couldn't be in big groups at all. Even groups, I think, yeah, you couldn't do anything still, but you could extend your bubble by like 1 or 2 people.
Okay.
Was what it was. Yeah.
And then after, so this is stage 3. When, how long did it take to go down to stage 2? And what is stage 2?
So it took 2 weeks to get to stage 2. So after 2 weeks of level 3, and the cases pretty much died out. I think there were a couple of still active cases, but there were no deaths. There were no new cases. You know, there was just waiting for everyone to kind of recover who was. They said that you could go back to level 2, so that meant people could go back into offices, retail shops could open, restaurants could open, bars could open, but it was all a limit of so many people. So to begin with, it was like groups of 10. You could meet in groups of 10. So if you had your friends, you could meet, but no more than 10 people. And like bars and restaurants could only hold, I think, 50 to 100. It got kind of changed halfway through level 2. So, you know, the numbers kind of kept changing once, you know, things kept dying down. Yeah, but like I could go back to work. So, and I could go back on public transport because I catch the train into Wellington City because I live in Upper Hutt, which is about a 40-minute train ride from Wellington City. But it was all still like strict social distancing. So there was still that measure in place at all the shops. Like you could only have so many people in the shops. You had to wait in lines and be distant. Hand sanitizer everywhere, signing in that you'd been there, just a lot of tracking. So if anything happened, you know, they could track. So yeah, that lasted, I think that was about another 2 weeks as well, 3 weeks maybe. We're now in level 1. So we don't have to do any of that anymore. You can still track if you want. Like obviously they recommend you do. But you don't have to sign in anywhere really. You can keep your own personal tracking. Yeah, trains are back to normal. You can like be next to someone, a stranger, which is odd. It's so weird being close to someone. Yeah, you're like, why are you sitting here next to me? This is so weird.
How do you feel? How do you see people reacting and acting with this change, right? That you said it's weird. Do you see people just going along with it and everything's fine, or do you still see some people feeling about a little bit weirded out or cautious, or what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so the majority of people are pretty, you know, chill about it. Like they're kind of happy to go along it. There are still quite a few people who are a bit more cautious or who have decided working at home is more convenient. That's a big thing that's come out of it. But majority of it is like everyone seems pretty all right with it. Like you do have little moments when you're in the supermarket and someone gets close to you and you're like, what's happening? And then you're like, oh, it's okay. Like you do get those sort of things. But overall, everyone's pretty good about it. Like, you know, but if you feel uncomfortable, people are accepting of that as well. Like, you know, no one's pushing anyone to be in a situation they don't feel comfortable in, like it's still okay if you're not comfortable to not do that. And that's what's nice is, you know, lots of companies as well, and there's lots of precautions, like, you know, there's still the hygiene thing is huge, you know. Yeah, I think everyone's just slowly is glad to be getting back to normal really at this point.
Yeah, and as long, yeah, comfort. And you already mentioned, spoke a little bit about it, but just to go into more detail, when was it that you figured out or realized, or what was the moment that you thought, huh, something's going on, it's more serious than I thought or people thought, or what's been said? Was there a particular
Mm.
moment or not? Do you remember? I don't know, maybe you read something, maybe someone said something else, or what was it?
I think it was like in it was definitely in February, like around that time when it was becoming even more on the news, like um, you're seeing it all over, especially on the websites. Like I read Daily Mail, which is trash, but you know, it was all over that. And that's when it started hitting. And then I was like, oh, well, I've got this trip to Australia. Like, am I still going to be able to go? Like, but it was fine, and like it was Australia, so it wasn't like a huge issue, like that sort of thing. Um, but then I think it was mainly like that week before lockdown, and then on my birthday, and then it just like hit, and it's just like, wow, this is actually like just so bizarre. This is so real. This is so much more than what we really thought. Because, you know, us Kiwis, we're pretty like, oh, you'll be all right. We're very like, oh, she'll be right kind of thing. So for our whole nation to like close down, like for us, it was like, don't go to work sick, because we're a huge like community of people who are like, oh, we've got to go to work, like we can fight through it, we're strong, like. So it was like trying to beat that out of us, like if you feel sick, like don't go out. Like it was a huge thing, like to try and get us to do. So yeah, I think that's when it started to hit and be a bit more serious, when it actually started affecting like my life, everyone's life. Because you see a lot of things overseas, but you're like, oh, it's cool, like we're so far away, like I guess we knew it was going to come, but like we're like, oh, we're all good. But yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and, well, unfortunately, it's spread everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's why it's a pandemic, right?
Mm.
And just now talking about, so we spoke about your experience, we spoke about how the country, what the measures were, what was done. Now I'd like to know, based on all these months and based on our conversation, could you tell me just what are your hopes? What are your concerns? What do you think will happen or will not happen in the next few days, in the next few weeks? Just let's have a look inside your head.
um, well, my hope is obviously that we don't get back into having to go back into full isolation level 4. Like I don't want to go back to level 3, level 4. Like it wasn't the greatest thing. I didn't enjoy it. So my hope is that we don't get back to that point. Like I predict we will get more cases. Like that was always, you know, they always said that, like it's never not going to fully go away, and especially because we're letting people, New
In
Zealand residents in, but we're letting people in, there's going to be cases. So I guess just like my hope is obviously that they just become a bit better at the border control, because that's what has shown from all this, is that they haven't actually been following the process that they told us that's what they were going to be doing. They haven't been testing people, you know, it's just been really slack, and just not what you would think they were doing. You know, we put a lot of trust, I think, into our government, and that's why it worked. Like we trusted their decision to lock down the whole country, you know, and I think for them to not have followed through with the border thing as tightly as they said they would, they lost a little bit of trust, I think. So I think what I would like to see is them build up the trust again with the nation and tighten it, and just, you know, continue at level 1. Like we can stay, I don't think we'll get out of level 1 anytime soon, and be completely back to normal. But as long as we're not moving backwards, then I think that's my hope and my prediction. Yeah.
I hope so for New Zealand, and
Yeah.
I think it's a realistic hope based on how New Zealand has handled the pandemic, you know, and
Mm.
you're lucky to be a Kiwi and to have the government you have, and you must know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, like it's just crazy. Like obviously I hope that the rest of the world would like catch on and be in the same place, but I get it. New Zealand's a lot smaller. We're you know, we're far away, but at the same time, like we have a government, you know, obviously everyone doesn't agree. You're never going to please everyone, but we have a government that most people respect. Jacinda has done an amazing job. Like you can't say she hasn't. Like there are people obviously who don't agree with everything she's done, but she probably made one of the hardest decisions any, you know, prime minister would have ever had to make. And she's been through so much already, and then she got slammed with this. Like she's done an awesome job, and I can't fault her for that at all. Like very lucky to be where I am.
Indeed, very. And to finish off our wonderful conversation, it feels more like a conversation than an interview.
That's good.
Yeah, it is. Just, if you could give yourself a message, so if you could speak to the Samantha from 14 days, if you could let her know something, what message would you give her?
I think just keep thinking positive. Like even if more cases come in, like don't get caught up in your head that, oh my God, it's all gonna go back to how it is. Just keep it positive, just kind of go with the flow with it a bit more, and just just keep I don't know, keep feeling like it's gonna be okay. Like, you know, and just hopefully we don't go back, you know. Does that make sense?
Stay positive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, pretty much is what I would say. Like it feels really good because mentally, like level 4 and level 3 was really hard personally for me. So it's just nice to be here and be like a little bit stress free from all of that. And I'd like to continue that.
Stay on the positive path. Well,
Yeah,
I wish the same for you, Samantha, and
thank you.
I really want to thank you for your time, for giving us a little bit of your Sunday evening, and
No problem.
we will see each other in 14 days.
I look forward to it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too. See ya.